Hey guys, welcome back to the Third Perspective podcast. This is episode 39. I'm Corey, he's Such, and as always, the opinions expressed here are our own. Such, how you doing?
I'm good, bro. How you doing, man?
Not too bad, not too bad. Special guest on today, Steve.
Yes.
Welcome to the podcast. Thanks for coming on.
Hey, man, thank you so much for having me. Really appreciate the opportunity here and look forward to all that's going to unfold.
Excellent. So why don't you, I know who you are, Such knows who you are, but some of our listeners might not know who you are. Why don't you give us a little 5-cent tour?
Yeah, so Steve Watkins, I'm a dad, I'm a husband, I'm a brother, I'm an uncle, all sorts of good things like that. What I do for a living is I'm in law enforcement with the Mounties. And currently, I'm in Saskatchewan. I say currently, like I've been anywhere else. It's all been Saskatchewan, south, north, central. But I've enjoyed my time. But particularly right now, I'm with Proactive Recruiting out of FDIV or Saskatchewan. And so, yeah, I endeavor to encourage folks to consider the RCMP as a career choice. And I'll say it flat out. If it's not for you, and then it's not for you. But at least someone will make an informed decision after speaking with me. So that's who I am. That's where I am. And yeah, I'm excited to, like I said, unfold some laundry with you folks today.
Excellent. I also noticed looking behind you there. You got
don't look behind me, man. That's my studio's not revealed yet.
You got a couple of guitars. That's all I'm going to reveal. Is there some music in your background here?
Yeah. So before policing, so this is a second career for me. I pastored a church in Ontario for almost 15 years. And with my portfolio, music was probably the largest part of my portfolio. So did quite a bit of traveling throughout Ontario, particularly around Southern Ontario, played at a lot of camps, a lot of week-long things and a lot of events, things like that. Yeah. And so music has been one of those things that sort of, and still is today, will keep me grounded and centered. I think I'm thankful that I have that in my life.
Awesome. And I also noticed your tagline there, Real Cops, Real Life. Why don't you talk about that for a couple seconds if you're comfortable?
Yeah, so 2019, it was the end of 2019. I was posted in northern Saskatchewan, one road in, one road out. So my days off, when I stayed around in town, I thought, what can I do? So getting, the musical part, that's the artistry in me, it was something that I wanted to explore as far as creating content for folks. Don't know how much we'll get into my particular story about getting in. It took me 5 years to get into the Mounties, and it wasn't from deferrals or failing, whatever. It was just the timing of it. The economy was tanked, hiring freezes, and it took so long for me to get through the steps. And while I was posted in the north, I remember, and I often think about my experience and my journey getting into the Mounties. I thought, what would I have liked to have had while I was walking through the process? I remember soaking up anything and everything I could with information on depot and what's training like. And because when I was going in, I was going all in. There was no safety net. There's no plan B. And so I thought I would absorb as much information. And so I found that there wasn't a lot of information that was, that's out there. But also the information that was out there was, shall I use the word sanitized, I guess, by the RCMP, and I get it. But I thought I wanted to create something that people can. So the real cop. So I'm a real cop. That's what I do for a living. But I also keep it real. And the second reel, my real life is I don't mind. I've made a conscious choice to put some of my life on a film reel. So that folks can have a look and have a listen and maybe learn something from my experience or grow in their own way. And anything that I can offer that they may find value. So I'm thankful that I've been able to do that. So it's been, 4.5 years or so. I still barely know what I'm doing, but seemingly folks like the information, at least some of it, that I put out there. And it does, Corey, Sach, that when you start getting out there and you start providing content, providing information, education, entertainment, whatever, you put yourself out there, there does run a risk of just the haters seem to come out of the woodworks, and I expected that. There have been some surprises along the way, I think, with who, but nonetheless, Real Cops Real Life is there to provide information and content for people to want to explore a first responders realm. It doesn't necessarily have to be, I've interviewed firefighters, I've interviewed peer-to-peer folks, I've interviewed telecommunications folks, so it doesn't necessarily have to be the popo. But some type of law enforcement or first responder. So that's what Real Cops Real Life is, and kind of how it was birthed.
Now, what have you in sort of your journey leading up from 2019? What have you taken away from trying to help people through the process? Has it been positive? Has it been negative? Has it been surprising?
So it's been overwhelmingly positive, but I think the humanness in me, and probably most of us, you get 100 positives and then you get that one negative. Mm-hmm. And I would like to say that I am a robot and I'm above any negative thing and it never will affect me. It never has affected me. I'd be lying through my teeth. It does affect me. I have grown a lot though. And as a pastor for over a dozen years, it was very important to me in my job, in my role, that people liked who I was. And so that has been a blessing and a curse. So the blessing, in as much as I want to strive to do my best and to continue to grow and all that, but the curse of it is I can't please everyone. I am not pizza. I won't please everyone. But with the growth that has come through that, and understanding that people, again, you present yourself, you put yourself out there, you expose your heart a little bit. People sometimes, for some reason, we call them keyboard warriors, or I wonder even if it's a person sometimes. There's weird bot stuff out there nowadays. I don't know. But I almost shut it down a few times. So I think one of the things I was happy with, maybe surprised with, was my own growth. Just being able to there's a few things, there's a few comments, there's a few zingers that will kind of resurface from time to time. And I just do my best to keep focused, because again, that humanness is like, man, I kind of tell myself, Steve, there's 100 people who say, thank you for this, it's helped me. And then that one keyboard warrior says, oh, you're stupid for, taking your boots off the ground, and whatever they may say. But there comes the surprise element, comes also in the way of my own teammates. My own fellow first responders seeming to hate on me, and they don't know me. They judge. I encourage people all the time, man, watch the movie for yourself. I can recommend something or whatever, but ultimately it's up to you to watch it for yourself. So I know for me, I've been checked in my own life to not make those judgments and say, hey, man, I gotta, because we all hear this, right? We all hear that. And so I'm thankful that I have people in my life who have encouraged me. Seth, you're one of them, who has encouraged me to keep going and to understand that there are more for me than against me. So that was a long-winded way of saying people are fickle. I'm fickle, but we move forward.
It surprises me though when you say, like, I expect haters. I expect we've had our own fair share of negativeness in what we're producing here, but it surprises me when you say that it's also from sort of your team and your the people that you're with and stuff like that.
Doesn't surprise me.
No.
Well, I'll jump in for a second, man. I can relate to what you're saying, and and I've talked to a few first responders kind of about this kind of stuff, and it seems like generally speaking, not everybody obviously, but generally speaking, first responders and law enforcement in general tend to be cannibalistic, man. Like if they see someone else doing something, they want to like attack it for some reason. I don't know what it is. And especially if it's something outside of the box. If you're doing normal things, fine, whatever. But if it's outside of the box, it's like, I don't know. It's a weird, I can't explain it, but I can see what you're talking about. Like I can understand what you're saying.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's like I said, to me, it's surprising. Maybe I've just been really lucky to at least, I think probably the worst that I've ever had is slight indifference. And I'm totally fine with that. You don't have to be on board with anything that I'm doing, but I've never had negativity. Like, and Steve,
not in front of you, bro.
Well, no, absolutely. Thanks for putting that bugaboo in my head. But but
Sorry.
Steve, is it in person or is it online?
It's online. Everything. No one once has come to me and said, "Hey, man, whatever." It's always been online, and I chalk it up to a few different things. Obviously, I don't really know what it is, but there's a couple of sayings that come to mind. One of them is, you'll never be criticized by people who are doing less than you, or sorry, doing more than you. You'll never be criticized by people who are doing more than you. So in other words, when we have our own stuff, we have our own passions, we're going after it, whatever that it might be, but we're going after it. It's like, we don't have time. You might do your thing and I may not like it, whatever. But if I choose to not even watch the movie for myself, then I should be forsaking the idea that I can actually form opinions on that movie or person or adventure, whatever someone is doing. It's like TD Jake says, you want to be mediocre, then don't make waves. I like to step out and to do something different. And I know that it's sometimes in the world of the unknown, it's like people fear that and whatever we chalk that up to be. But it's unfortunate. And I'm thankful that I think it's become less over the last maybe year and a half-ish or so than before. I think it's just, that Steve guy just simply isn't going away. So like, whatever, leave him alone. But yeah, man, mediocrity. I don't want to settle for that. If that's where my max is, other people may see it as mediocre, fine. But for me, I got to go after it, whatever that it is. And for me, it's that content, that artistry. Yeah, listen, I'll pick up my guitar and play you a song if I need to, but I need an outlet. And for my right side of the brain, or whatever side of the brain that is, that's what I'm going to be, is that creative.
Yeah, I think and Such and I have talked about this with other guests as well. It's to me, it's almost that fear of success. It's the idea that somebody's looking at what you're doing, seeing you succeeding, and then thinking, well, that's stupid. But really they're thinking, I don't know if I could do that. Like even subconsciously. And It's that idea of, well, that's stupid. They shouldn't be doing that. That's stupid. But really they're just like, I don't know if I could do that. And it's that hate for what they don't believe they can do that ends up just getting transferred onto you.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, I'd agree with that to a certain degree. Like, if you're doing something that's outside of the box or extreme or artistic or whatever the case may be, and people don't understand that, they generally speaking, from my experience, people will talk poorly about that action or thing that you're doing because they don't understand it, or they don't get what you're doing. They're not inside your brain to understand what your vision is, what your goals are, all these things that, they're seeing a snapshot of a thing, right? But for me, when I see people I don't even have to be into the thing that they're into, but if they're passionate, I'm already in. So if someone's passionate about whatever the thing is, I want to support that person, even if I don't engage in that activity. So for sure, like with Steve, man, I know he's passionate. Like, I mean, I know for a fact he's passionate about all the things that he does. So I'm like, yeah, 100%, man. I'm down to support that or engage that or whatever it is, because passion to me is the precursor to excitement and activity and action. So if you can give people passion or display passion, that hopefully will lead to them doing something as well.
Steve?
Yeah, I think that you use the word success in there, and success could be a relative term because is it monetary, is it whatever that term might mean to someone. But I think success is sometimes it's someone may think that, oh, he's being successful, he's going after something, he's whatever, and you don't know what like if you haven't taken the time to watch the movie or read my entire book and not just take the snippet, you're not going to know what I'm even striving for. So is this successful or not? I can look at my YouTube channel, Real Cops Real Life, and think, man, I've got less than 6,000 subscribers. I've been doing this for 4.5 years. I'll watch someone who I'm like, their content is, mediocre at best, and they have, tens of thousands of subscribers, so I can't, you can't start comparing yourself. Right. So, and I don't care about the numbers at all. My point in all this is that term success, I think people do fear the unknown, for sure. People fear the unknown, and they judge what they don't understand. And what I want to put out there into the atmosphere is read the book, watch the movie, get to know someone. Don't cast judgment on that. I just, my success is when a cadet messages me and says, Steve, I'm getting my badge next week. Will you come and watch me receive my badge? That to me is what tugs on my heartstrings. That passion that led to action, that's the payout for me. I don't get, I don't do this for money. I don't get that. It's that cultivating my passion to see someone, get their badge, and whether that's the RCMP or something else or whatever else, I get excited and I want to champion things and events with people who have worked hard and went after it and got it.
Yeah. And to the best of my knowledge, because I remember when you were sort of first coming out with your channel and putting out your stuff, I remember I was watching it and thinking, oh wow, that's a great idea. I wish I had the guts to go do that. But to the best of my knowledge, you're one of, at least within the RCMP, you're one of the trailblazers. I'm trying to think of somebody else who's kind of done what you've done in as public a way that you've done by putting yourself out there, where cadets have been reaching out to you or people that are interested in getting into that, and you've really been addressing them. Maybe you've got more information for me, but I can't think of another podcast or platform or YouTube channel or something that's doing that.
I don't know of anyone. No, like it literally was. I am answering the question that I had, and that was, what would I have liked to have had while I was going through my 5 years? If it didn't take me if it took me 8 months to get into depot, if I didn't, apply it and get posted to Saskatchewan, and if it was like easy street, I probably wouldn't have been pressed against that fork in the road that even made me consider this artistry outlet to be a content creator for people to use to help them in their journey. Yeah. But because of the struggles I had, because of the length of time that it took me, I badged over to Toronto City Police. That was another thing. In 2018, I went to Toronto City Police, and I came back to the Mounties. So again, that wasn't intentional so that I can make content for those people who are considering, municipal agencies over, federal. But it happened to work out so that I've created content and I've been able to answer some of those questions and be a resource to people who are considering doing the same thing or want to know why the Mounties over this or X and all I can give you is a glimpse into my movie, my book, and then you got to make that decision for yourself. But I don't know of anyone else that's doing kind of at least the way I'm doing it. Yeah.
Now, what is it that you're getting from your the people that are communicating with you that have watched your stuff or gotten benefit from it? What is it that they're saying is there one thing? Is there several things that they're like, I'm so glad that you covered this, or I'm so glad you talked to this person because that really helped out in the journey to get me where I am?
I think probably encouragement. That seems to be a very common thread. There is a troop, I'll give you a story. There's a troop right now at depot, very early in their depot years or depot months, whatever, very, very early. Mm-hmm. And a young fella came to me and said, hey, it's so nice to meet you. It's because of you that I'm even here. And that's huge to me. So I said, well, like, how so? Like, how? And he said, because I wanted to give up and I wanted to think, because this person got deferred. And he thought, but I saw, you would have encouraging videos and you would have content that helped me believe that I could actually get the golden call. And so here I am now talking to him at depot. So I think in a word, it would be encouragement to keep pressing on.
Such in your own career there, what do you think was missing that might have been filled by something like this?
I think this is a great initiative by Steve. I think it's a brilliant idea, to be honest. I think there's a lot of people, myself included, and look, I wasn't with the RCMP or policing, I was with CBSA, but it's the same sort of idea. You're going through a process, uncertainty, what do I need, how do I do it, where do I go, all these different questions, and you kind of have to figure things out on your own, and it's not impossible, but sometimes it becomes really helpful if you have a friend on the other end who's able to guide you. And for me, when I look at Steve, I look at somebody who's a friend trying to help somebody through a process. if someone's trying to get into the RCMP, it's not like a superior. It's not like a recruiter. It doesn't feel that way. It's a friend talking to you. And I think the RCMP, at least from my perspective, if they don't understand how beneficial that platform is in recruiting and how positive it gives them as an image on the social media platform, I think they should definitely consider it a lot more, because I think it's an amazing sort of thing that you're doing, and it should be recognized, I believe.
Thanks, brother. Yeah.
Now I'm wondering if we can get the RCMP to sponsor your YouTube channel now. But in all seriousness, though, what have you found from doing your content and sort of answering those calls? Because I know as you said, you're currently in recruiting now. What is it that you've been able to bring forward from what you were doing before in your frontline policing sort of thing, but providing these answers that you think has given you a leg up in your recruiting that you think people are now responding to?
Well, from prior to policing, just when you spend years communicating with folks, whether it's one-on-one, small group settings, or larger settings, hundreds if not thousands of people, when you're addressing these different groups or individuals, you develop a certain communication skill that seems to be effective when it kind of coincides with who you are. And I think that's where it's very important to me that I don't, and I think it should be to anyone, is to don't try to be anything that you're not. And I know that sounds so like, Sunday school cliche, but man, I just see it all the time. They try to be hardcore because that person who I like is hardcore, or they try to be artsy because that person is artsy, or whatever, just be you. And so I think that me being me is having an ability to communicate with folks on a real level, because in the end of it, if I would rather say to someone the truth and be real with someone who has some good questions about, the RCMP or law enforcement. And if in the end, I feel that this person, maybe law enforcement isn't your best option, at the risk of maybe deterring someone from even applying, I'd rather be upfront and real with you out of the onset. So I think the ability to communicate on a tangible level, like Satch was saying, about almost like a friend, like I'm not a superior, I'm whatever, I'm just a dude who can help maybe walk through some stuff, because I've walked through it myself. Hard to lead someone where you haven't been. So as I've walked through that stuff, I'm hoping that the ability that I may have and my angle and my sort of flavor of communicating can be effective in at least informing someone in such a way that they can make a decision that's going to benefit them in their life. In the recruiting world now, so I'm able to use this sort of platform or these platforms to broaden that kind of message. So, I probably get more people from BC than anywhere that reach out to me they slide into my DMs or whatnot. Probably from BC. And I just think that's so neat how from the territories, BC to Newfoundland, like everyone is able to, and obviously it gets a little bit overwhelming sometimes, and I don't get as quick as I want, all those sorts of things. But I think just being who you are, being true who you are, and using your gifts, using your talents for a better, or for a bigger purpose than yourself. I think it's so vital, whatever that might look like. I think it's so important that we just be yourself and walk through and navigate through whatever the best outcome. If that means policing, great. If it doesn't, great. But as long as you are making an informed decision, I think that's key. And I think with the RCMP, I've been very fortunate with the support that I've gotten from my upper management in Saskatchewan, who do appreciate what I do, and I'm thankful for that. And I think that's part of the combating those negative Nancys that kind of rear their ugly head from time to time. It's just, hey, listen, I've got support. Like I said before, there are more for me than against me.
Now, with your sort of current career, like you said, or the current aspirations of your career, when you're getting these people coming to you and they're looking to join up with the RCMP, and I mean, I think we can probably apply this to any sort of new career. What are some of the needs and some of the wants that you guys have when you're looking at somebody coming in? Because I know it's been, almost 2 decades since I had to think about what a new career would require me, and it's probably changed in that time. But what is it that you're hoping to see out of people? Not necessarily skills or education, but what is it that you guys are looking for? If there's anybody listening who's thinking of a career in law enforcement, or just even starting a new career.
Yeah, well, you have to have some faith, right? You have to take the leap of faith. Some folks will develop some sort of safety net, like a plan B, plan C, plan D. There's nothing wrong with alternative plans, but when our focus, like if you're going to make this a go of it, the process itself is a challenge, and you've really got to pull up your bootstraps and go after it. There's a lot of forms. There's a lot of persistence that you need to do. There's a lot of digging in your own life that you need to do. But then, of course, when you get into training, there's another gear, right, that you need to find. It's because they're going to put it to you, and that's intentional. But I think that being coachable and being able to apply lessons is completely vital as you navigate through the process and training and then your career. I would say that for someone who's listening to this and thinking, I'm kind of on the fence, I don't know. I will just echo what Wayne Gretzky says, and that is you miss 100% of the shots you don't take. Because I didn't have a plan B. I had a good friend of mine in my troop who had a very strong plan B. And often I would hear this cadet say, well, if this doesn't work, I got this I can go back to. And I appreciate that. I understand where he's coming from. But for me, it was, I don't know that I would have made it through training if I was focused on a plan B. I didn't have one. I knew I was all in. So you gotta go, and you gotta go all in. At least, if nothing else, if you get into it and you're like, this isn't for me, or I wasn't successful at some point, or I got deferred, or I made a different decision, and whatever it is, at least you can look back and say, but it wasn't because I didn't give it a shot. Yeah. And that's what I would say. There's a lot of resources out there, not just Real Cops Real, but there's a lot of resources out there who can help navigate through the process, the training, and then the career. And I would just say it does take some work. Listen, stuff isn't handed to you, man. And if you are someone in your life that everything has just been handed to you from day one, I can't relate to that. But what I can say is that, the good things come to those who wait. Yeah, that's an old saying, but also good things can come to those who work their off. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. So work hard at it. Go after it.
Now, Such, we've talked about this as well, about being all in. I know that's something you're very passionate about. It's great to have a plan A, plan B, plan C, plan D. But if you're constantly taking a step back to make sure you're still in that escape route, you're never moving forward. Right? You're never putting your faith fully into what you're doing. Great, you have this plan, but your foot's always dragging behind because it's still trying to stand back in whatever your plan B was.
Yeah, I mean, I have not saying that my way is the right way or the good way or the safe way, mm-hmm. But I'm burn all the boats, the tanks, the cars, the everythings, and then just go in another direction. I'm that guy. So so having said that, to the point of if someone is going to be applying for a position in law enforcement, and now I'm not a recruiter or anything, but I was in law enforcement. And I think the number one thing, if you're thinking about getting into the career, before anything else, before, working your hardest and all these things, is why you want to do it. And if you're going to do it, have the right reason to do it to begin with. Now, for me, don't be like me. And don't be like me with the focus of stability and a pension and benefits. That's not the right reason to get into a career of law enforcement, because you'll get burnt out, and you'll at least for me, you'll get burnt out, and you'll hit walls. Because when things become challenging, and inevitably they do, without that real defined purpose in the career, it becomes very, very challenging. So I urge anybody who's going to be taking that step into a career in law enforcement to really think long and hard why you want to do it, and create your purpose and why through that.
I like to think of the fact that I got into this job to help people. It just got a little bit difficult to do so because of people sometimes, but I have to remind myself as to why I got in. I didn't get in for the paycheck, that's for sure. I wanted to touch base though on something when we were talking a little bit earlier, and I was thinking about what it takes to sort of take that next step in whatever it is that we're doing. And I know I was talking to Steve offline here a little bit about things that he was passionate about, and he mentioned the pillars of life, and he mentioned a few of them. And I wanted to touch base on that, and I wanted to see what your guys' opinion were. Obviously, I'd like to know what Steve thinks and what his pillars are, but I don't think that the pillars are always the same for everybody. So, Steve, why don't you walk me through what you're thinking when you say pillars of life? What are you talking about? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, Corey, I'm glad you said that it's not the same for everyone, because that's what I was going to start with. That my pillars could look very different from the next person's over. But I think that there is similar purposes behind whatever our pillars are. Ultimately, a pillar is there to hold something up, right? I mean, when it's all broken down, that's what it is. It's to hold something up. And I've been doing quite a bit of inventory of my own life over the last couple of years. Been taking Steve inventory, you know. I mean, I'm 40-something years old now, and I don't know if this is just comes with age or what it might be, but I don't have time for things that don't fuel me and don't kind of spur me on and sort of feed that garden. Like, you know, you got to prune the weeds away sometimes, and that means you got to get dirty and you got down in the muck and what have you. I am no farmer guy, but one thing I learned, man, is that we can outgrow people. And it's not that we're better. It's not that it's just we're different, right? We grow in different directions, and that's totally cool. And so in taking inventory in my life over the last couple of years, I've been able to sort of evaluate where I'm at, mentally speaking, spiritually speaking, physically, you know, emotionally, all these different things. Like, where am I? And recognizing what's off, like what is off in my life, because ultimately I feel like sometimes it's a continuum of, you know, supporting this pillar because it's a little lack this week or this month, and so I'm a little off on that side, or then this pillar is get, you know. So I look at and this you have to forgive me here, this is the pastor coming out, but it's faith, it's family, it's fellowship, it's finances. And did I say family already? Mm-hmm. Fitness. Fitness is the other one. So I find that those 5 pillars in my life are very important to continually take inventory of, because more often than not, when I feel off and I feel like I may be short fused with something and I shouldn't be, or I'm just having a bad day, month or week, or even a year, or whatever the song goes. But when I take an inventory, I'll ultimately come to, you know what, I've been spending a lot of time doing this and not giving time to that. And so I'm recognizing, if, you know, I call them pillars, maybe some people will call them buckets. Like, what bucket am I filling up? What cup am I filling up? So I'll just touch on fitness because I think it's very relatable. It is so easy to have a day or a couple of days of missed gym time turn into, how has it been 4 months that I've lifted anything heavier than my arm with a fork to my mouth, right? It becomes so easy that happens. And when that couple of days turns into a few months, it's like, it's so easy to, you know, you feel not as good physically. If a thing where you're looking at yourself in the mirror, you're putting on your pants, you're like, Dag, honey, you shrunk my pants again, or whatever, you know, whatever the thing is, it's like, you got to take an inventory and say, well, you know what? I'm feeling off because there's a few things here, but one of them is I haven't hit the gym for a while. And so for me, that's become a pillar in my life. I used to weigh 300 pounds. I was a very heavy, I literally couldn't do a push-up. But you'd look at me, because I'm 6'4" and a little bit, you would look at me and think, wow, this is a big, strong guy. But in my mid-20s, I could not do a single push-up. I would have to do the alternative push-ups. And I did them alone in my house because I didn't want anyone to see. But I knew that I had to start somewhere. So the change that has come in my life And as much as I'd like to say from that point till this point, it's been a complete up, 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 and everything has been perfect. And now I'm jacked and I can do 1,000 push-ups. I'm not, and I cannot. But thankfully, I lost some, 65, 75 pounds. And so that became a pillar in my life where I knew that if I'm lacking in the gym, there's something going on where it doesn't, my mental capacity, my mental ability, and that, emotional intelligence was kind of getting a little bit sideswiped because I was missing out on that pillar. Faith is another one. If I am not, I do go to church and I enjoy that. It's good times. I find that if I'm away, similarly to the fitness, it's like Sundays, you miss one, you miss two, before you know it, 6 months before. You might think, well, church isn't important to me. I don't care what your pillar is. I don't care. But my point in that is it is important to me. And I recognize that by taking inventory, it's like, oh man, I haven't had a date with my wife in like 6 months. That's a family pillar. I haven't spent a lot of good time with my girls because I've been creating content, but I've been doing a lot of good things. I've been working hard. I've been working extra hours, but it's sacrificing my family pillar. Finances, man, swipe right, add to the cart, buy now. That's so easy to do. I don't know if anyone of you guys have bought anything through the COVID times, but it's a real thing. And so it's so easy for that. And if your money, you're broke, busted, and disgusted, it's easy to let other things infiltrate, and all of a sudden you're just not a nice person anymore. And so you got to take a step back and think, fellowship. Have I hung out with friends? Have I been around people outside of law enforcement? Because I think that's important too. What's my fellowship pillar like? Am I hanging out? The iron sharpens iron. Am I around people that's going to help build me and grow me, and who's going to challenge me and call me out on my nonsense when I say, yeah, I haven't been to the gym for 3 months, but I had a thing, my stomach, my finger, whatever. And I need people in my life to be like, no, bro, you need to get to the gym. So that to me are my pillars of life. And it's just super important to take inventory of whatever your pillars are and think, what am I missing out? Where does my time? We're allotted 24 hours a day. I don't care if you're Elon Musk or you're Steve Watkins, you know what I mean? We have 24 hours in the day, and where we put our time and our energy and our efforts, our resources, time and attention, we can't get that stuff back. So invest properly, invest purposefully, and take an inventory of your pillars and see what's off, because you want that solid, you want that foundation to be even. And the pillars that hold up that foundation, you need to make sure that you're doing your best to make sure that they're as even as they can be, because there will be folks and there will be situations that come and they're going to cut out those pillars and try to chop them down. That's when you got to stand strong and think, no, I need to recognize what this is and continue to rebuild.
Now, with your pillars, you're mentioning them, some of them are lacking, or you haven't been paying attention to them and they're off balance. Does that mean that, in your experience, that we're putting it to other pillars, or is it just a simple fact that that particular pillar is lacking?
I think it's important to recognize whatever it is that floats your boat, that fills your cup, whatever we want to say, because I've asked myself this question, like, could I not add pillars to my life? Maybe, but I feel like for me and who I am, those 5 pillars sort of encompass everything that is in my life. Because we can go like finances, for an example. Yeah, I kind of make jokes about adding to carts and whatnot, but finances also stems off to your career aspirations. And all of a sudden you can go down these different roads, right? Fellowship is just hanging out with my bros. Is it hanging out with people? We can go down these different things. Am I making time? Am I being intentional with my time? So I feel like they sort of encompass everything that I'm about and everything that's important to me. And ultimately you have to be cautious about the sabotagers. Is that a word? Sabotager?
Saboteur.
Yeah, the saboteur.
It's a French word, I believe.
Oh, oui, saboteur. Sure, sounds good. Because there will be things that could come into your life that could almost mask like it's important, and you just have to be careful. And there, everything in moderation, sure. I'll give you a quick example. I really got into F1. This rate. I don't know much about it at all yet. I'm still such a newbie, but it's so fun to watch. And I can binge watch on Netflix. If I'm not careful, I'll watch all 6 seasons. So that's just an example of like, I'm spending, evening after evening after evening watching this. And there's nothing wrong with watching F1. But when you're doing it at the sacrifice of maybe, I haven't hung out with my girls for a while, or, haven't really paid attention to my, whatever that pillar might be, you just have to be careful of the saboteur and make sure that you're doing your best to balance everything. Really, that's what this is, right? It's really a balancing life. People call it work-life balance. I just like to broaden that a little bit to say the pillars of my life.
Now, do you have defined pillars yourself, or is it something you're making up as you go here?
I've made it up most of my life, but I think it makes sense. I'm very introspective and I reflect a lot. And so for me, I kind of do that. I haven't really identified pillars as such, but as Steve's saying it, I do those things, right? So, and it's funny you mentioned this. I was at this event not too long ago. Maybe you heard of it, Night to Inspire. It was a couple weeks ago on the 30th of March. And Seb Lavoie was giving a presentation on the 4 pillars of wellness. And he gave 4 pillars, and essentially the same sort of idea as you're talking, Steve. But that made a lot of sense, and it does make a lot of sense. And I think they are actually mandatory. I think they are for an individual to feel well, overall wellness, right? So you do need to have exercise. You do need to have some sort of way you eat and how you eat, and you do need that spiritual element, whatever that may be. Either it's religion or whatever it is, right? Whatever that spiritual element is. So there, I believe, and I think based on the presentation I was watching that Seb was giving, scientific research that does support the fact that these pillars are very important to have, and to constantly, if you can, actually, this is what I kind of do. Throughout my day, I do schedule myself throughout the day to have some sort of one of those pillars in them, right? So if that, my run outside, I'm doing 2 things at the same time, getting some fitness, I'm out in nature. So, being out in nature does have a mental health sort of wellness capacity to it. Meeting with friends, this might not be the same, but for me, this is fellowship.
Yeah.
Or if I'm going somewhere to hang out with people, like-minded people, not people who are totally different, even though that could be beneficial as well, but like-minded people where you can kind of just shoot the whatever, right? And I do believe that those things are super necessary, man. And that I have been incorporating those things in my life for the last couple years, more religiously now. And I have, man, last time when I met with Steve a couple years ago, I was a very different person.
Mm-hmm.
And the way I am now, I'm absolutely different. And we were talking about growing. Man, you would hope to grow year after year after year after year, all the time, like never stopping. And so, yeah, I agree that these pillars, as you've outlined them, are very important. And I think for me, I do observe my form of pillars every single day to make sure that I am able to get up every single morning and do the things I need to do.
Yeah. Steve, is there, with these 4 pillars, I know we've talked about balance, but you're going to have people that are going to say, yeah, okay, I've heard your pillars, but to me, family is everything, for instance, just to use one. And if my family's not okay, then nothing's okay. So I always have to make sure that I'm focusing on that pillar. That is my primary thing. As long as that's strong, I'm fine with everything else. Do you think that that's a viable way of doing things, or do you think that there still needs to be that balance where everything is being looked after?
I think everything has to be looked after. Because I would echo that. My family is everything to me. But for me to be everything that my family needs me to be, I need to be as well balanced and as well and whole as I possibly can. So it's almost like that, a little bit of a circle thing. So because my family is everything to me, my young girls need their dad to be the best version of the dad that I am to them. So I have to think, okay, so if my family is the most important to me, how can I give to my family the best way that I can? And the best way for me and the way that I understand life is by being in good balance with overall wellness. And so I can't, if I'm missing the gym, so that fitness pillar is being neglected because I'm watching F1 all the time. When I get down, my youngest girl's 1.5 years. I'm an old man to have 1.5 years, but she's there. So if I'm missing the gym and I'm so heavy and out of shape that I can't get down and play with her at her level, I am not doing her a good service. I'm not being the best dad that I can be. So therefore, ergo, I am not saying, I can't honestly believe that my family is everything to me, and at the same time be so completely out of shape that I can't give them the best version that I could be.
Now, if somebody listening says, you know what, I've taken stock of what I believe my 4 or 5 pillars are, and I see 1 or 2 or 3 are way out of whack. Either they're way too important in my life or they're not important enough, but I don't know where to get the time in the day or the energy to get into the day to start balancing those out. What sort of advice can you give them?
Calendar magic, time blocking. You have to be intentional about. I literally, on my fridge right now, there's a magnetic week, Sunday to Saturday, and it literally says, whatever day, I think it's like Monday and Wednesday evenings, like YouTube, and then Tuesday and Thursday family. So I'm putting them there intentionally so that I look at that every day when it's on the fridge, right? What's the plan? And that's about being strategic, right? Like you have to think in terms of, okay, if I'm going to do that, I can't put it in my phone on a note because I won't always open up my notes every day. So I have to be strategic, and I stick it on my fridge on a magnetic board. And so it just reminds me to have a look at what's been going on. So I literally map out my week, and it is not, I've tried to do the real strict, like from this time till this time, I'm going to do that. To me, that doesn't work. Maybe some it will. So if someone out there is listening who thinks, I just don't have time. I don't have time. You have to make the time. If it's important, you'll find it. But there's an old saying that says, if you show me your bank account, I'll show you your priorities. And our time is our bank account, so to speak. You show me what you did in a day for the last week. You take inventory of what you did. I'll show you what's important to you. You may say this is important to me, but if we take an inventory, we take a balance check on your previous week's bank statements as far as your time goes, that doesn't always line up. So you have to make sure that you understand when I say this is important, and you may feel it's important, but you have to be intentional. And you have to sometimes just get down to the roots of it all and to be practical and say, I need to stick this on my fridge because this out of whack pillar is either getting too much time or not enough or not the right kind of time, or even in as much as I'm a morning person. And so I need to, like for me, Steve time, this, whether that's working out or whatnot, maybe the best thing for me to do is to say, when am I at my best? Okay, I'm at my best here. Then I need to correspond that pillar time in that kind of time slot. So yeah, it's just calendar magic, time blocking, be intentional and block out that time. There are times, and by the way, this sometimes will go against everything that you feel. You're like, I don't feel like it. As passionate, I'm going to let you guys in on a secret. As passionate as I am about creating content, there are so many times where I do not feel like getting in front of a camera or caring about my studio or I don't feel like it. But something has taught me when I was mid-20s and I was 300 pounds, and that is many times I didn't feel like waking up at 4:30 in the morning to go to the gym, but man, I just got to show up. And if I can just show up, it'll start to unfold and I was able to get the workout through. Sometimes great ones, sometimes not so great. Same thing.
Sorry to interrupt. I have a question because it hit me like a ton of bricks. Do you think when you were 300 pounds and going through the process of losing all that weight, that created a discipline in you that you use even to this day?
100%.
Yeah. I think that's awesome.
Actually, this was almost 20 years ago, man. Because again, I'm 40-something years old, right? So
yeah,
this was a long time ago that YouTube wasn't even a thing back then. Yeah. So content creators. So I still will. I don't want to go down to my basement. I don't want to sit there. I want to watch F1 or whatever. And But I know because it's on that magnetic calendar, I put it there. I was intentional about putting it there. I need to be accountable to myself. I'm going to go down. And sometimes all I end up doing is sitting in my chair and scrolling through something and whatever. But at least I got here, and at least I showed up. And sometimes showing up is half the battle won.
100%, man. I can relate to that on so many different levels because, like, yeah, I don't want to do things sometimes too, right? And I remember this one. Sometimes when I really don't want to do something, I have to think about other people and, almost put like, oh, I have to do it for other people kind of thing, just to kind of push me to do it. But I remember last year when I was training, my last training block for the 22 marathons in 22 days, I think it was the last training block I had to run. The last 3 days before I had like a 2.5 week break of not doing anything, the last 3 days was running 42 kilometers for 3 days in a row. And I was and before that was like like I was already building up 20 something, 30 something and up to the 40 something. And it was one day, man. It was like the second last 42K day. And it was hot out, it was during summer. And I scheduled myself to do it in the morning. I got to it around 2 p.m. And I was looking at my shoes. I was staring at them for hours at a time. I was like trying to find things. I was trying to find a reason not to do it. But that's what I was doing. I was trying to find a reason. Then it hit me. I got to find a reason to do it. So I had to find something to do. So I ended up texting a friend of mine. It was a very simple text because I knew what the response would be, but I needed that person to say something to me.
Confirm.
And yeah, exactly. So I sent a text message and I was like, oh, I really don't feel like doing these 42 kilometers right now, period. And then my next sort of statement was, but I guess that's why I have to do it. And the response from my friend was, yep. And that was it. And I was like, okay, I better go. But to your point, man, it's not everyone has it, but if you create a disciplined behavior over a period of time, you can always rely back on it. No matter how tough that challenge is, you can always kind of find a way to make it happen.
Yeah. And I would add to that where I've been guilty of this, where sometimes I will lose and I won't do that 42 kilometer. Listen, I've never run 42 kilometers in my life. I don't even like driving that far, but whatever. That's a story for another day. But sometimes I will lose that little battle and I won't do the thing that I know I should be doing. Right. Not to get all preachy here, but Paul in scripture says, why is it that I know to do the things that I ought to do, but I do them not? But the things that I know I shouldn't be doing, those are the things that I find easy to do. And I end up doing them. And so I couldn't help but to think of Goggins. And I've heard him say on a few different things where he's lacing up his shoes and just cussing everyone out because he doesn't want to do it. So I would say that if you find yourself, because this is when those 1 and 2, 3 days that you miss on the gym turn into months, when you find yourself in that situation, don't overdo it, man. Like, don't overbeat yourself up and don't whatever say, oh, I'm garbage. Don't go down that rabbit hole. Just dust yourself off, write something else, on your little magnetic calendar, magic, whatever you're doing, reset, restart, refocus, whatever you need to do, and to get back after it.
Question, two-part question actually for both of you here. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. We've identified the pillars. We've identified they need to be in balance. We've identified that we need to pay attention to them and go forward. But when it comes to support in our life, first part of the question is there a benefit in identifying our pillars to those around us? And what is the benefit, or how do we get buy-in from friends and family to support us on keeping those pillars balanced? I don't know who wants to take that one first.
I'll go first. Mine will be fairly short, I suspect. I surround myself by like-minded people, so the pillars should be aligned. So I don't have to sell anybody on anything. They already know my pillars. I know their pillars because they're one and the same. So it's fairly easy for me to kind of move forward. And like, say, for example, Julia, she's my girlfriend, right? Similar pillars. It doesn't really take much. She knows I'm going to be going out for a run because she knows I need it. Or, I need to do this, that, and the other because she understands that's part of my pillar, and vice versa. Same for her. If she's going to go do something, I know that that's part of how she sustains herself. So as long as I don't even have that conversation, I'm engaging with people in advance, already trying to understand who they are and if they're going to align with my pillars or not. If they do, then they become part of my friend circles, or at least I try to make go down that road. If they're not even there, then I keep people at a certain distance, because it just generally doesn't work, at least for me. I don't know. What are you guys' thoughts?
Mm.
Yeah. One, I think expectations come into mind. Like I can't expect anyone really to adhere to the same pillars that I may, or even any pillars at all. Like, you know what I mean? I can't expect, because that's their life. But similarly, it's when I have to recognize those people who are iron in my life so that they can help sharpen me and me them. And those people will inevitably have similar goal sets and whatever balances them, because they may have something that I don't quite understand, I don't get, I don't do, but I think that is still important, that we have people that look. I don't like Satch, for an example. Like, fitness is important. We can generalize fitness, and him and I would both agree, yes, fitness is very important. His level of fitness, his payout, what he has to pay for his level, I am not willing to pay that. I'm just not. It's not important enough for me. Not fitness. I don't mean that the pillar of fitness is still there, but the level of, and I may have something in my life where he's like, yeah, that's cool, you do that and you do that as much. And that starts to come down to time allotment, right? We have to invest our time into things that strengthen those pillars that become so important in our lives to be whole. We have to invest so that there's a return on investment. And so whatever that return on investment looks like for this person or that person and me may look a little bit different, but nonetheless, we have to know that we are investing in ourselves. And that looks like, not only for me, but as the oxygen mask falls down, I put it on myself first, because I want to be the best support and help and friend and dad and husband to those appropriate people in my life. So I definitely, I do like to share my pillars with, well, anyone here now, but on a personal level, that whole, like, my wife knows what's important to me. And I'll sometimes say to her, that I feel like I haven't paid much attention to this thing in a very long time. And she'll call me out on it. And I think that's why we get along so well. And I'll do the same to her. But there are very few people. They say, have that tight knit circle. Sometimes that circle looks more like a dot, right, in our lives. And people come and go too. There's that breathing, that living dynamic of people in and out of our lives for a reason, for a season. And so it's just important to recognize, you will get around like-minded people and who will support you and you them, and that's great, and you can grow together. But just be careful of those who will want to chop out your pillars, because whatever creeping in their life, you may not have, I may not be able to have you buy in on that, or maybe you're a wolf in sheep's clothing, I don't know. But just be mindful that as you start going after stuff, people will start to attack. And it's unfortunate, but that's the nature of the beast, I guess. That's some humanness, but and I don't have the science to back that up, but I just have the experience. So the buy-in from people, I think that Seb, and I don't want to bring Seb up all the time, although I love the man to death, but he said something to me one day that sort of changed my life. And he said, Steve, don't try to sell your competence, demonstrate your competence. And that hit me like a ton of bricks. And that goes back to, as a pastor, I was a people pleaser. I cared a lot about what people thought of me. And so sometimes I would try to sell, hey, what I'm doing is great, guys. Hey, this is great, guys. Don't worry. That's all gone now. I just do it now. And if someone sees it and likes it, great. If they see it and don't like it, great. But one thing is for sure, I'm not going to wait for you to like me before I continue to do what I'm doing.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. I had that sort of epiphany not too long ago, that sort of demonstrate versus whatever the other term would be, right? And it's accurate, man. Like, if you're able to just be yourself, demonstrate the behaviors that you like to see in yourself and, maybe other people, it's essentially leading by example, right? Just do what you need to do. And then if it'll shine, if we're going to go the religious route, right? walking a path so righteous that everyone will look at it despite anything else. So people will turn to look, hey, what's going on over there? They're living a good life. How are they doing that? And then they're going to ask. So once I made that realization, or that sort of understanding that, oh, I'm just going to live the life that I want to live, do it the best way I can, and be positive through that. If people start knocking on my door or tapping on my shoulder saying, hey bro, what are you doing? How you doing that? Or let's talk or whatever, then it's all fair game. I used to be the guy who'd be like, hey, you got to do it this way, or you got to be like this, or just telling people what to do.
Mm.
And I well, one, it never worked. And it would piss people off, and I noticed that it saves a lot more energy for me, and less heartache and less stress by just being me and doing what I want to do.
Yeah, and then inevitably, where does that energy that you save, where does that go? That goes into you. That goes into investing in the proper things that you need to invest in. Yeah,
yeah, for sure, man.
Corey, you're so good at this, man. I just love this conversation. I just love that you guys are Corey, I just feel a little bit sometimes like Corey stokes the little thing, and then Sachin. I just love it. This is awesome.
I mean, this is, to be honest, I think Corey's got a gift for this, man. I'm ridiculous. I talk, I do all kinds of stuff, and having a Corey around me is very helpful for me, because he pulls the conversations out of everybody, and I'm also enjoying. I'll be honest with you, man. I was looking forward to this conversation for a few reasons. A couple of years ago, I came to visit you, and I was in a very, very different headspace at the time. And I was kind of at the beginning parts of my sort of healing journey from a mental perspective. My mental health wasn't in the good spot at that time. And you were the first person I actually went out of my sort of my home and stayed at someone else's home on this journey that I've been on. Since I've been to a whole bunch of other places and met a lot of other people and whatever, but you were the first person. And now in hindsight, I'm like, what was I like? He invited me into his house and let me use his car. And I was just like, now I reflect back. I mean, that was so awesome of you, man. Like at the time I was like, yeah, of course. Why wouldn't he? Like, that's how I thought. Right. But now I'm like, man, that's such an amazing, like an open heart, and that tells me and shows me the type of person you are, right? And you're a perfect person to be doing exactly what you're doing when it comes to the real cops, real life, and the position that you're in. It's like welcoming people, and you did that for me when I came to visit, and I just wanted to shout you out for that.
Thanks,
so
brother. I appreciate that. Yeah, I appreciate it.
All right. Well, we're sitting at about an hour's time. I'd love to keep going, but unfortunately my editing skills kind of end after about an hour. So what I'll do is I'll touch base on some final thoughts here with you guys, and then we'll see what's going on in your lives and how people can get a hold of you. Any final thoughts on what we've been talking about?
Yeah, from the pillars perspective, I really like that. And I think it's a really good way for people to manage the things in their lives maybe a little bit better, because they can visualize what a pillar is and start taking action towards those steps. So yeah, definitely having pillars in your life and moving forward with that sort of understanding is very helpful. So awesome.
Awesome. Steve, final thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, we covered a lot of stuff, I know. If there's someone still listening to till now, just do yourself a favor and those who you love, and take an inventory of where you're at, and ask yourself the question, how am I? How's my balance? What kind of person am I lining up from the person I am versus the person that I want to be? And if I'm not, have a look at your pillars. Do you even have any? Maybe, and I don't care what you call them. We're using this as a whatever. You can call them buckets, cups. I don't care. But I just think there's, so important for us to be mindful of who we are, where we come from, all the things that we've done, all of our experiences as we move forward, and ultimately living is giving. And I'm not talking about money only. That maybe one thing, sure. But give your time and attention, your two most valuable assets, of which you won't get back. So be the best version of you that you can. I know it sounds so cliche, but you got to start. If you got to roll back and refocus and re-engage, and do that. Take inventory of your pillars, identify them, be intentional about building them and sustaining them. And I promise you, when that foundation is built on those pillars, you will be the best that you can for, if not even just for yourself, but those who you love that's in your circle.
Oh, I love that. And I do like the imagery of pillars. I like buckets and things like that. But for our talk here, I really like the idea of pillars. And I want people who are listening that are at the beginning stages of even building those pillars. Those pillars don't have to be large redwoods and huge and into the sky before you start building your foundation. They might be a foot off the ground. But as long as you're building them, and they might not be big, they will get big, they will get tall, the foundation will get tall and strong. But don't be discouraged because you're looking at something that's only a couple of feet off the ground before you're building your foundation. So give yourself that space, give yourself that time, give yourself the energy and the support that you need, and surround yourself with those people that will be able to help you build that. So what do you got coming up here, bud?
What do I got coming up? Oh, June 5th. Global Running Day. I start my 60K a day for 52 days straight. So we're going to be running across Lower Mainland and then flying off to Edmonton, run from Edmonton to Calgary, fly off to Toronto, run from Toronto to Ottawa, and then fly off to Halifax, run there, and then fly back home and finish it all up. Raising money for the Such in Motion Foundation so we can start raising a ton of money for various charities. We're going to be having 3-4 different charities covering the veterans, first responders, children, mental health, all the things. And stay tuned for the fall where we're going to take our event on tour, and we're going to come to Toronto, Ottawa, and Halifax in the fall as well. So stay tuned for a lot of content and information and fun and whatever else.
I can't wait to do the Shaky Cam podcast where we're going live with you while you're running.
Oh man, you wait for it.
Feet in sky and feet in sky and feet in sky.
Oh, wait for it, bro. I'm planning all kinds of things.
Awesome. And Steve, what do you got going on, and how can people get a hold of you?
Yeah, so working away, if you're out there and you're listening to this, like, man, maybe I want to be in law enforcement, you can definitely reach out to me, primarily on Instagram and YouTube, and that's at Real Cops Real Life. You can certainly slide into my DMs or comment or what have you, and I'll do my best to get back to you. Lots going on. There's lots of growth, both professionally and personally. As far as the content goes, this studio, Sachi mentioned you came to the house a couple years ago. It does look very different now with that continued growth. So we're just excited to continue to press on and to continue to just provide content that folks can find valuable. Real Cops, Real Life.
Awesome. And Steve, I've got an idea for you off air here that we'll talk about a little bit more, but I can't thank you enough for coming on and letting us into your life. Such as always, super awesome. From all of us here at the Third Perspective Podcast, thanks very much, guys. Talk to you later.